What is going on? All right, so this lesson is gonna be fun, and this lesson is intended for those that are just starting to play the drums. I realize I have a lot of resources for advanced people in the free area on my YouTube channel, a lot for intermediate. I just assume people jump in at a certain point, and I went, man, I don't really have a lot for beginners. Now on my website in the members area, if you're needing a coaching program, a lesson plan to get you through with lessons, jump over, check out the Drum Better Daily membership. I have 3 lesson tracks that are in sequential order. We call it the Warrior Way, and then going on from there, there's lessons just piled up that basically you hit the ground running and have a template for what you need to be doing step by step if you've just started playing the drums or come back to the drums after a really long break. So that's there for you if you need it. The link's below in the video description as well. This is really the second in this series for complete beginners, and the first lesson was going to be, was on your very first drum lesson. And so we focused on learning a very simple groove that allows you to play a ton of songs. It's been used in so many popular recordings. And what is great is it's simple, it's effective, and you can jump in and begin playing songs that you recognize. So here's that groove, and we're gonna have a drum fill to go with that groove today. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is going to be what the first lesson was on, your very first drum lesson. If you came into me, then that's pretty much where I'm gonna start you. I'm gonna figure out kind of how you're set up, and are you left-handed, right-handed, and then we're gonna dive straight into a groove like that, because then I can show you 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 songs that you can go, like you can go home and play this week, play along to these songs, have fun, and come back next week. Now, this is the next place I would take you, is your very first drum fill. I've linked that lesson below this, but if you've watched that, now it's time for your first drum fill. I keep this drum fill extremely simple because transitions are the place that many beginners have a problem with, okay? So this is going to use a subdivision, 1/8 notes, that we used in the last lesson, and it's gonna work on 2 things, maybe 3 things to point out. The first is it's going to work on getting you out of this box and making you move to the individual drums. The second thing it's working on is your transition. So being able to go into a drum fill, come out of the drum fill, and come back in on time. I used this just with a 7-year-old student just last night, and he was killing it after like 10 minutes. Okay, and we turned on a song immediately and started playing to that song using that drum fill, all of those things. Why? It's so important to put this in the music. So as soon as you learn this, take it to music and start playing that, okay? So, let's go ahead and check out what this drum fill is. It's very simple. It's gonna be 1/8 notes. Remember, we have 8 of those to a bar of 4/4. So we count them like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Now, how are we gonna lay those out on the drums? Well, remember our right hand, or your left hand if you're left-handed, was already going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We're gonna take that and we're gonna bring it here to the snare drum for 2 notes. And we're gonna play 1 and. And on beat 2, we move here, 2 and. Beat 3, we move here, 3 and. And beat 4, we move here, 4 and. And you might be like, Stephen, I don't have 3 toms, I only have 2 toms. That's okay. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and then we crash, okay? Stephen, I only have 1 tom. That's okay. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Adjust this to how your setup is. I don't have any toms. Great, just play it on the snare drum. So we can adjust this to whatever the setup is, but most drum kits typically come with 3 toms. So if that's your setup, we're going 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes. If that's not your setup and you have a 4-piece setup, so snare, tom, tom, and a kick, then it's gonna be 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, and 2 notes. And that's how we're gonna do this drum fill, okay? So without a click, here's what it sounds like. 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's it. It's that simple. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it to a click. I don't usually start patterns to a click or a metronome because I want to be able to kind of speed up and slow down with them. But once you get it under your hands, then what you're going to do is you're going to, what a teacher would do is they'd have a pair of sticks or a cowbell and they would be hitting those 8th notes so that and they would be cueing you. So that's what I want you to do though, is get this click going, and we're going to put 8th notes on the click, 2 and 3 and 4 and we're going to play this drum fill around the drums. 1 measure of drum fill, 1 measure of space. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, last time, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Step 1, learn the sticking and the fill itself. Step 2, put it to a click or a metronome. Make sure you can do it in time. Step 3 is put it with a groove. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out with 1 bar of groove, 1 bar of fill, no crash cymbal. Why no crash cymbal? The crash cymbal is an added element of complexity. We have to crash, which adds a different groove. The groove is no longer 1 and 2, and it's 1 and 2. That's a different groove. So we'll get there. The first thing I'm going to do is 1 bar of groove, 1 bar of fill, and then we're going to extend that time to 3 bars of groove, 1 bar of fill. All right, but first we want to keep that feedback loop as short as possible. So here's what that sounds like in time. 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. That's simple. Then we'll speed that up a little bit. So that was 50 BPM. Let's speed this up to 80 BPM. 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then I'm going to do what I told you. We're going to do 3 bars of time, 1 bar of fill. Why? Because music many times comes in groupings of measures, and a 4-bar measure grouping is a very common measure grouping. 8-bar, 12-bar blues, 16 bars, very common grouping. So we want to, as soon as we can, move it into a musical realm so that we can hear those phrases and begin to recognize them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, if you want to, you can add your kick drum with this fill just to make it funner. So add it on the quarter notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Sometimes that adds an element of fun to it, keeps the song moving, and it's okay to do that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add a drum fill, or not a drum fill, a drum crash to this, okay? So we're going to hit that crash cymbal. So it's going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and crash and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. Now, obviously, I'm not going to slow down at the end of there, but I was doing that to emphasize what was happening in there and kind of draw your eye and your ear into that. So then I would take this to 50 BPM and I would do 1 measure of groove, 1 measure of fill. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 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 2 and 3 and 4 and. Once we have that down, then I'm going to use the 3 measures and 1 bar of fill. So 3 measures of groove, 1 bar of fill. And here's the next thing that we're going to do. 3 measures of groove, fill, crash, and then we're going to move to the ride cymbal. So that's the next step. And the next added level of complexity is moving to that ride cymbal. So the first step is learn the pattern. Second step, put it to a click. Third step, 1 bar of groove, 1 bar of fill. Fourth step, 3 bars of groove, 1 bar of fill. Fifth step, add the crash cymbal. So 1 bar of groove, fill with a crash at the end of it. The sixth step, 3 bars of groove, the fill, and add the crash at the end of it. That is what I would call a mini assembly line. So it's a very organized way that we work through that, and we can use that for other grooves as we're learning them. So assembly lines are something that I teach a lot in the Drum Better Daily membership program. So I have certain core concepts, and that's definitely one of them. So here we go. I'm going to bump this up to 80 BPM, and we'll see the full thing kind of put together and moving to a different sound source. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And there you have it. Now you know your first groove and your very first drum fill. So those songs you've been playing along from that last lesson in this series here on YouTube, you can now begin to add this drum fill in there and spice things up a little bit. Now look, if you're looking for a complete program, YouTube is probably not the place to do that. If you're wanting a complete comprehensive program, I have one of those. It's a step-by-step process that's already laid out for you, and it's proven to be successful with students. So you can follow the link below, jump over, check out the Drum Better Daily program and what all it has to offer. As well, I've got a couple more lessons coming out in this free series on just beginner, just starting the drum. So be sure and look for those. Now, if this has helped you, leave me a comment below. Let me know maybe why you started playing the drums, what motivated you to start playing the drums. If it helped you, share it with somebody else that you think it may help. Hit that thumbs up button. As well, subscribe to the channel. There's new content coming out every week, tons of it, lots of exciting stuff coming, as well as more in this series. And the link below for that first drum lesson in this series is also there. So I really do appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Go hit the drums, learn this stuff. Let me know if you got any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.